Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Carolina, and if you're new around here, I'm a hormone specialist and a holistic health coach. And today, we're gonna talk about the menstrual cycle. If you're a menstruator, if you have a monthly period, you should care about this. And the reason is that there is so much about our menstrual cycle that we are not taught as women. And one of my missions, one of the things that lights me up is helping women understand their own bodies. Because when you understand your own body, you're able to look at yourself with extra self-compassion. You're able to live a better life, live a healthier life, and overall also just feel better. I think there's been this really cool wave of women on TikTok talking about their experiences going off of birth control, how it's helped them, and I think it's motivated kind of this collective shift for women to start thinking more about their relationship with their bodies, with their cycles, with birth control, and overall with being a menstruator. And when I first came across cycle syncing, it was because of TikTok and Instagram, because of social media, because of hearing about women who started going off of birth control and eventually started feeling more connected to their essence, to their energy, to their needs. And so that motivated me to go off of birth control, to learn about my own body, to learn about the cycle. And now that I have my hormone health specialization, I also feel like I know even more about hormones, which is really exciting. So we're gonna quickly chat about what cycle syncing really is. We're also gonna dive into the main hormones that play an important part in your cycle. And it's important for you to understand that, because when you understand the hormones that are kind of underlying your whole experience, you're able to understand why you feel certain ways. And then we're gonna quickly touch on the 4 phases of the cycle, and hopefully you'll be able to get a better understanding of what they are. So with that said, let's dive in. The term cycle syncing, what it really means is making lifestyle shifts to align your energy and your routine with your menstrual cycle. The reason this is important is that as women, we do not live on a 24-hour clock. When it comes to our primary hormones, those hormones oscillate in a monthly basis. And so we go through a 28, 30 plus day hormonal cycle every single time we move through a menstrual cycle. And that's why you might feel differently socially, energetically, physically, mentally, emotionally in different weeks within a month. So cycle syncing is about working with your body instead of against your body at the root of it all. So now let's dive into the main hormones that are a part of our body as menstruators and how they kind of play a part in our cycle. Just a little note though, our bodies have so many hormones and I'm not gonna dive into all of them in this video. I'm gonna just touch on 3 key hormones that have helped me understand my cycle so much better, and that were the 3 hormones that kind of kickstarted this understanding in my brain about the cycle. But that said, there are so many hormones that are important. There are hormones that affect the production of these very hormones. Like, I could talk for hours about the hormonal makeup of our body, but I'm just gonna dive into these 3 key ones in this video for the matter of simplicity and to not overwhelm you as you start learning about all of this. Something else that's really important is that I'm gonna dive into how our hormones function when they're at their optimal and when they are balanced, aka when the quantity of one hormone is balanced in relation to the quantity of the other hormones. That said, there are so many women and so many human beings who struggle with hormonal imbalances that don't even know they struggle with them. And these imbalances can result in really uncomfortable symptoms like really bad PMS, like horrible cramps, like mood swings, like irritability, fatigue, etc. And so I'm not really gonna dive into how to reduce those symptoms. In this video, I'm just kind of gonna give you an overview of how the hormones work when they're at their optimal. So eventually, as we, talk in further videos, you can then take steps to get your body to be at these optimal hormone levels. But it's important for you to understand how your body is supposed to operate, how your body naturally is made, so then eventually you can make little lifestyle switches, little habit changes to support your body and to work with it, as I said before. Now, the main difference between the bodies of menstruators and non-menstruators, or primarily the body of women and men, is that men have testosterone dominant bodies while women have estrogen dominant bodies. So clearly, estrogen is a very important hormone, one of the main hormones in our bodies. That said, men also have estrogen and women also have testosterone, but testosterone is one of the primary hormones for men, and then estrogen is one of the primary hormones for women. So what is estrogen and why is it important? I like to refer to estrogen as our inner badass. In the female body, estrogen is what helps us develop our reproductive system post-puberty. It also is what contributes to the growth of some female womanly characteristics like our breasts and pubic hair, and it also is what thickens the lining of the uterus to prepare it for a possible pregnancy. And ultimately, estrogen is the dominant hormone in the first part of our cycle, in the phase of our cycle that leads up to ovulation. And we'll dive into that in just a little bit. Energetically, estrogen is what makes us feel excited and curious, and it kind of creates this feeling of anything is possible, kind of fills us with energy to get things started in our lives and to take action. So that's why after you end your period, you might feel this burst of energy as estrogen starts to increase in your body. Now, a second very, very important hormone in our body and in our cycle is progesterone. And progesterone is quite different than estrogen. The way I would describe progesterone is as the inner hermit. Progesterone in our cycle is what prepares the womb for a potential pregnancy. It helps regulate ovulation. It controls and regulates our menstrual cycle. And ultimately, it's what would ensure and help maintain a healthy pregnancy for women if you were to fertilize your egg during ovulation in one phase of your cycle. I know we're getting a little bit sciencey, but bear with me. In terms of feeling though, progesterone feels completely different than estrogen, and the way that it feels, it's kind of more inward. It's gonna cause you to be more reflective, more intuitive. It's gonna bring you more into yourself and out of socializing in the outer world. It's the hormone that is in the largest quantities in the second phase of our menstrual cycle, and that's why leading up to your period, you might feel a little bit more inward and less inclined to go and socialize and talk to a bunch of people. Now, last hormone that I want to quickly touch on is testosterone. As I mentioned, women also have testosterone. It's not just men, and testosterone can be described as the inner sporty spice. Testosterone strengthens our bones, it strengthens our muscles. It's also what increases our sexual desire, and it is the highest during ovulation. And that's why when you are ovulating, you might feel this little spark in your sexual desire. It's gonna make you feel more inclined to exercise. It's gonna make you feel sexier and more badass. So those are the three main hormones. Now I'm going to quickly flash an image on the screen for you to understand the difference between our hormones in the first part of our cycle and in the second part of our cycle, and then we're going to dive into those parts, to those phases. But as you can see, in the first half of our cycle, estrogen is the top hormone. About 3 or 4 days after you've had your period, it starts to go up and up and up and up, but at the same time, testosterone slowly increases. Both of those hormones peak when you are ovulating, and ovulation marks this kind of important moment in your cycle, because after you have ovulated, the hormones in your body, the quantities of the hormones change. So after ovulation, as you can see on this graph, estrogen starts to fall, testosterone falls, and you have this small peak in estrogen in the end of the second phase of your cycle, but ultimately progesterone is the most dominant hormone here, and you're gonna understand how that plays out when we dive into the phases. So just wanted to give you guys this first baseline understanding of your hormones, because they're so important for us to know about and to be educated about, because once you know about them, you're gonna then be able to understand the phases better. You're gonna understand why you feel differently in different parts of your cycle, etc. Now let's dive into the 4 phases of the cycle. We are taught that like you just have to know when you get your period, when the next period more or less is coming, and that's about it, right? Oh, okay, when I'm on my period, I didn't get pregnant this month, and if my period is late, I freak out. That's what most women tend to go through every month, and if you have an irregular cycle, it can be super stressful. But when you know the 4 phases, you're able to keep track of your cycle throughout the month instead of just thinking about when you get your period versus when you're not on your period. So the first phase of the cycle, the one that I like to start with, is the menstrual phase. So when you get your period, you have entered your menstrual phase. It's also called your inner winter. Think about winter, right? When it's winter time, outside is cold, you want to drink hot chocolate, you want to snuggle up and watch a movie, you want to rest, you just kind of want to stay more in. You're not likely to want to go put on heels and go to a bar and dance all night. And so the best way to think about your period is to think about it as your winter. And during winter, I feel like a lot of people also get very introspective. We tend to go inward, we tend to reflect a lot. And so that is kind of the vibe of your inner winter. When you are on your period, your hormones are the lowest. And so when it comes to your period, the best thing you can do is honor where you're at. I think as women, especially as type A, high achieving, perfectionistic women, hint, hint, I'm one of them. Sometimes it can be really hard to slow down, really hard to take a break, to pause, to rest, to allow yourself to disconnect from the outside world. I know how hard it can be. So I think that is one of the biggest areas of growth for us as women, is learning to honor those slower phases of our cycle. Your period being the most important one for you to honor. If you are someone who tends to have very intense period symptoms, I'm talking to you. You need to slow down and you need to honor where your body's at during your period and also leading up to it. And we're gonna touch on that a little more in depth in just a few minutes. Now, that is essentially what I want to say to you today about your period. I also want to say periods are not gross. It's okay to talk about it. Something that happens to over 50% of the population, and let's stop making it be a taboo thing. I find it so freeing to be able to talk about my period, and I also love knowing, you know, when my friends are on their period, so I can also honor them. So once your period ends, once you have reached the first day where you're not bleeding anymore, you are going to have officially entered your follicular phase. This is going to continue maximizing energy that has already been building up at the end of your period, and you're going to start feeling more energized, more lively. You're going to likely want to go and socialize more, right? Think of spring. Think of the switch from winter to springtime. Once the weather starts getting a little warm, everyone wants to go on walks and make plans with friends, and people talk about spring cleaning. And even in the astrological calendar, when Aries season begins, that marks the start of spring and of a new calendar, astrologically speaking. And so your follicular phase marks a new beginning. It marks the start of a new cycle for you. So this is a great time for you to think about new ideas, things you want to implement. Overall, energetically, you're just going to feel more curious, more energized, more driven. You're going to have more energy. So this is a great time for you to move your body, especially if you are into high intensity workouts, or be it running, weightlifting, cardio, etc. This is a great time for you to do that, and also to just brainstorm, think of ideas, and to also socialize. As I mentioned earlier, estrogen is the primary hormone in your follicular phase, in the start of your cycle, in the start of the first phase of your cycle. And as estrogen rises, the follicular phase leads up to ovulation, which we'll dive into in just a sec. But ultimately, what your body is doing is it's creating a safe environment. It's creating a fertile environment for an egg to be fertilized. Now, as spring becomes summer, as you know, summer comes in our lives, people start getting excited to go out, to travel, to go to rooftops, to tan at the beach. It's very fun focused, it's travel focused, it's just excitement building. And the same thing applies to your ovulation. Ovulation is the most important marking moment in your cycle, and that is when your egg is then released and is ready to be fertilized. Now, important thing to note here is that ovulation happens literally for only 24 hours in your entire cycle. We are told as women that we have to be worried about getting pregnant always, but the thing is that we truly are only fertile and at risk for getting pregnant, if that's what you're trying to avoid, for a very small window in our cycle. So when ovulation happens, that takes 24 hours, but sperm can live inside your body for up to 3-ish days, sometimes 5 days. So in the 5 days or so leading up to ovulation, you also should be mindful and careful. And I usually also leave a window of 1 to 2 days after ovulation has ended for you to, you know, if you are sexually active, to be careful, to use protection. But otherwise, in all the other parts of your cycle, as a general rule of thumb, if you have a regular cycle, you cannot get pregnant. Especially after your egg has been released and it has not been fertilized, and you've entered your inner fall / inner autumn / luteal phase, you can't get pregnant. So that's something we're not taught about our body, and I think it's whack. It's so wild and insane that we're not taught that. So important for you to know. But ultimately, when you're ovulating, just best time for you to have fun, go take pictures, like embrace like the sexy energy that you're gonna have as estrogen and testosterone peak. After that has passed, after ovulation has passed, you enter the second phase of your cycle, also called the luteal phase. Think about the shift from summer to fall. We're currently entering autumn in New York, and I am feeling it. Weather gets colder, we start getting out the sweaters, we start wanting to drink warm, cozy drinks, and we end up staying inside a little bit more than we previously were. And I also start feeling more inspired to really get work done, because when it's warm and bright outside, I want to be socializing, I want to be walking, I want to be exploring. I don't necessarily want to be inside sitting at a desk. And so same thing kind of applies to your luteal phase. It's a great time for you to get deep work done and to really kind of like grind. But at the same time, the luteal phase is a time for you to be really mindful, because as I mentioned before, the focus shifts from estrogen and testosterone to progesterone. And progesterone, right, as I said, is creating this environment in your body for a potentially fertilized egg to become a baby, to lead to a pregnancy. And so ultimately, like from a primal perspective, your body's just trying to create a safe environment to bring life into this world. That's why you're gonna feel a little bit more tired, a little bit more inward, because it's activating this really feminine, nurturing part of you. But as women in this like very hustle bustle environment that we tend to grow up in, and especially for high performing, high achieving women who fall to perfectionism or put a lot of pressure on themselves, this can feel very unstabilizing. And so your luteal phase is a really important time for you to be very mindful of your inner critic, of the amount of things that you're doing, whether it's socially, physically, etc. So it's a good time to slow down just a little bit, whether that means that you add a little bit more sleep, you know, go to bed a little bit earlier, or don't pick up like the heaviest weights at the gym, don't go on a run necessarily, but like still move your body. Like you can still do everything that you want to do. Just reduce the intensity by like 30 to 40% if you can. If not, just like reduce the intensity by like 20%. But just start slowing down a little bit more. I would say the two most important things during the end of your cycle is getting enough sleep, and then prioritizing blood sugar balancing meals. And I'll make another video on how to balance your plate. But ultimately, this is where your blood sugar is going to be extra sensitive, which is why you might feel an increase in your hunger, an increase in cravings leading up to your period, you know, those typical PMS symptoms or mood swings. And typically if some of your hormones are imbalanced, that's going to aggravate those symptoms. But the most important thing during your luteal phase is to honor where you're at, to have extra compassion with yourself, be mindful that you might be experiencing some tougher inner talk, and like your inner critic might be more activated. So don't be so harsh on yourself about what you did or didn't accomplish this month or all of that, but take note of what comes up, because as I said, you're gonna be extra connected, or you can be extra connected to your feminine during this time. So the downloads that come are powerful, and it's a good time for you to get shit done, basically to use that time that you're connecting more inward to moving the needle on things that you're working on, and to be a little bit more productive like you would maybe when it starts getting colder outside. Again, as I said, prioritize slowing down a little bit, showing more compassion with yourself, and eating more balanced meals. You know, this was quite an informative, long-ish video, but hopefully it gave you just like an understanding of the beauty of the cycle. As women and as menstruators, we are cyclical creatures, and I think that's really important for us to honor. Growth is cyclical in general too. The growth is never really linear. Just like nature is cyclical and has seasons and ebbs and flows, so are our bodies, and that is something super divine about being a menstruator. So honor that. And so hopefully this video kind of gives you this first understanding of what cycle syncing really is about, what the hormones that play a part in the cycle are about, and what the four main parts of the cycle are about. Now, that said, this is mostly an informational video. I know it's not as much actionable, so I will make more videos on how to start tracking your cycle, shifts you can make nutritionally to optimize your cycle, the impact of stress in the cycle. Like, there's so much that I am going to chat about on this channel going forward, but I wanted to make this video first so we can kind of lay the groundwork on what we're gonna build on and what we're gonna continue talking about. But remember that you are a beautiful cyclical creature. There is so much about our body that we are not taught as women. You know, we're taught to think that we have to only prevent pregnancy and use birth control as a band-aid solution for symptoms of hormonal imbalances. Like, there's just so much that goes through my brain as I learned about all of this that I know women need to know about. So this is just the beginning. If this was helpful, please let me know. Drop any questions you have about the cycle in the comment section. Let me know what videos you want me to make going forward about the cycle, about hormones, about holistic health, and I will make them. So that said, thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, comment down below a red heart so I know who sticked around till the end, and love you guys. I will see you in the next video, and until then, have a beautiful day and week.